What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through the top 10k template for the upcoming double game week 22. So because of all the uncertainty, are games going to be going ahead in double game week 22? Is it even going to be a double game week at the end of the day? Might even be a blank game week or a single game week. But with all the uncertainty and all the question marks around the upcoming game week, I decided to make a video that's quite generic that won't change with the upcoming news. And that's exactly what the top 10k template is going to be. And in this video, I'll be covering kind of the chip strategy of the top 10k. What chips have they used? What chips have they not used? That sort of thing. Just because it gives us a nice perspective for our own personal teams and how we can actually make up points on these high ranked managers. The next portion of the video is going to be purely the top 10k template, which is basically going to be the most highly owned players within those overall rankings in the top 10k. I also want to give a shout out to livefpl.net, where most of the information from this video was actually taken. If you guys haven't checked them out, I usually use them to check my live rankings, but the developer and the creator has added a whole bunch of tools that are really easy and very informative to use, so I'll leave the link down in the description below. But if the top 10k template is something that interests you, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the first talking point or information that we're going to cover is going to be the chip strategy of the top 10k managers, and why this is quite useful, as I mentioned in the introduction, is that it gives us a nice kind of reflection and perspective of ourselves compared to these top 10k managers. And if you guys are already in the top 10k, I mean, you guys can just compare yourself to your fellow managers within the top 10k. But for a manager like myself, I'm currently outside the top 10k, and therefore I want to see where I can potentially make up points. And chips are usually quite a simple way to make up points. Say the whole top 10k used the bench boost, I haven't. That should theoretically give me about 10 points at a minimum, hopefully, unlike a Leeds triple up last year, which got my bench boost about 6 points. But you know what I'm kind of saying with the chips? Usually they do result in some points gains, and you guys can use that on the top 10k. So I'm not going to go over wildcard because we've just basically got the second wildcard, and I think about 3 managers in the top 10k had used the second wildcard, which is pretty insane. So the 3 chips that I'm going to focus on are going to be the free hit, both of them, the bench boost and the triple captain. So let's first talk about the free hit, and you'll see that there's actually 2 percentages there. So no, that's not kind of a separation. It's actually the first free hit and then the second free hit. So with the first free hit, 42% around there of the top 10k have actually used the first free hit, which is more than I actually thought. Now, we went into kind of a big debate of whether the free hit was worth it or not. I personally think for my own team it wasn't, and the simple reason for that is that I kept Mo Salah and then he missed the penalty as my captain against Leicester. So theoretically, I would have got rid of Salah and probably captain Ronaldo, and therefore I would have probably had more of a points gain. But for the top 10k, who kind of knows, very situational chip the free hit is, but 42% have used the first free hit, whereas only 1.3% have used the second one. Now we're entering a game week that could be quite a free hit friendly game week to go for, a double game week 22. I personally don't think it's the best game week. I think I would probably hold off just because the number of options are kind of decreasing as the days go on. So I would recommend going into this upcoming game week a free hit free, but I mean, it is a situational chip, so if you guys want to use it, by all means. We then move on to the bench boost and the triple captain, and these chips really have not been used by many managers within the top 10k, 8% for the bench boost and 5% for the triple captain. So what I would actually recommend you guys doing is, if you have someone in your mini league that has a really good rank, actually go check if they've used the bench boost or the triple captain, because if they have, chances are they're probably a lot higher than you, and the simple reason for that is that these chips usually result in quite a nice points gain. So that's why I always wait until the end of the season to take things really seriously in those mini leagues, the overall rankings, because so much can change depending how good your chip strategy is. But I guess the biggest talking point out of this is that the managers in the top 10k have not really used the good chips like the bench boost and the triple captain, but in terms of the first free hit, 42% have basically used it, which is almost half, and therefore if you guys still do have that first free hit, I think that could come in quite clutch in the second half of the season. Comment down below how many chips you guys have used. I'm pretty sure there'll be loads of you that have not used a single chip, probably besides the first wildcard. Hopefully you guys did use the first wildcard, but I'm pretty sure most of you haven't used any chip. Personally, I've used the first free hit, to be honest. But now that we've kind of got the chip strategy out the way, the second portion of this video is going to be purely about the top 10k template. Then after this talking point, I'll be kind of predicting the transfers that these managers might make heading into double game week 22. So starting off on the bench here, by no means this is the bench of the template. This is simply just because these players are quite highly owned. Yes, in probably most managers' starting 11s, but unfortunately I couldn't fit all of them into my starting 11, so we had to have a bench. Ben Foster coming in with just below 50% of ownership. I'm pretty sure half of the top 10k are really waiting for Ben Foster to return to the playing field. I don't really know if he will after coming back from this injury. Bachmann has actually looked quite strong for Watford, so maybe Ben Foster might find a little bit tough to become that starting goalkeeper. But nevertheless, really cheap goalkeeper, nice budget enabler, and probably will be on our bench most game weeks. But the next three options have a real potential of starting. We've got Damari Gray from Everton at 36.2%, and then Reguilon at 28% ownership from that Spurs defense. So obviously Spurs having that double game week coming up, and that's what I want you guys to do in this top 10k template. We'll do it a little bit later on, but if you guys want to give an initial reaction, just look how many double game week at 22 players the top 10k template has, because that'll give you a nice metric to compare yourself to them, and that could potentially be a nice points gain for your own team. But Reguilon's a great option at that wing-back position, and also a great option, at least at the start of the season, was going to be Livramento, but unfortunately, he seems to have picked up quite a nasty injury, and that might actually require surgery. So we don't actually know if Livramento is going to be returning, could actually play against Brentford tonight. Make sure that you guys are watching tonight and tomorrow, because Game Week 21 is not actually concluded yet, but don't worry, that won't affect the top 10k template. But now that we've gone over the bench, some great options here, even some double game week players, let's go into the starting 11, and starting off with the double game week player, a Dayvy De Gea from that Man United defense with 44.1%. So double game week, probably the best double game week to focus on. I just hope that United defense shows up a little bit, because I personally do own Dayvy De Gea, and I think the Man United goalkeeper's had a massive shift of ownership towards him after that Arsenal blank and Ramsdale's ownership kind of depleting. So De Gea is definitely not template at this current stage, only owned by 44%, but he is increasing to that ownership where he might be quite a template pick. But now going on to the rest of the defense, and I think there are definitely two template options here. That's going to be Cancelo and then Trent Alexander-Arnold. So Trent unfortunately testing positive, however that's going to be on the weekend. So maybe a full week of rest will allow him to be fit for this upcoming game on the weekend against Brentford. Holding thumbs, and I'm pretty sure the top 10k template also holding thumbs. They managed to return because he's just such a great option, and you guys would have seen that in that mid-season review video that I did do, even though he is so expensive, producing the points. Cancelo, though, one of the most standout options to go for in defense, and I definitely can think about that 96% ownership being quite right. I think he should be owned by 100%. Maybe some managers don't really favor him, but I just think from a Man City point of view, any Man City option that's nailed to play is really going to be gold in FPL. And now finally, heading up another double game week at 22 option, it's going to be Alonso from Chelsea, the only fit fullback or wingback currently in that Chelsea squad, and he comes in with just below 40% ownership. Now personally, I don't really favor that Chelsea kind of double game week. The Man City away game is absolutely terrible in my opinion, but maybe Alonso can get something out of that. I mean, it is kind of a top 6 clash, inverted commas, a kind of a top 2, top 3 clash in this current Premier League season, so that game might be a little bit cagey, and therefore Alonso might magically get a clean sheet or maybe even an attacking return. But the second game against Brighton is definitely the one that you guys want to favor, and I do think that's going to be a favorable game for Chelsea and also Marcus Alonso. And now heading on to our midfield department, and the first player I'm going to mention is going to be the injured man, Heung-min Son, out for a number of weeks after picking up an injury against Chelsea, which is super unfortunate, but I do think that Heung-min Son is going to be on the way out for the majority of managers. 68.5% ownership, a massive ownership there. Had a double game week originally, was actually going to be my captain probably heading into this game week, but because of that injury, I would recommend taking him out because he's going to miss a number of game weeks. A player that hopefully won't miss a number of game weeks is going to be Phil Foden. Currently, I think yellow flagged, 75% probability of playing. But with Phil Foden, even when he's not injured, he still does have that Pep roulette. And because of those behavioral issues, I just hope that he's back in Pep Guardiola's good books. However, Foden is still a massive differential, only owned by 37% of the top 10k, and definitely my favorite Man City option to go for in attack. We then go on to the two most highly owned midfielders in the top 10k template. First of all, Diogo Jota, understandably. I think that ownership is only going to grow with Mo Salah and Sadio Mane out. Diogo Jota's nailed to play. Was probably nailed to play the past couple of game weeks, but with those two options out now, definitely going to be starting, and I think he's going to be the talisman in that forward department. So 85.5%, I think it's going to only shoot up as these kind of game weeks go on without Salah and Mane, and I just hope that he manages to return us owners. And then the final player, the most highly owned option, is going to be Jared Bowen with a massive 92.6%. I do think that ownership is due to the game week 21 double game week that West Ham did have. And as a Jared Bowen captainer, I just hope that he can return against Norwich or at least score more points than Antonio. Talking about Antonio, he also comes in here with a massive ownership of 83.1%, but I do think Jared Bowen is favoured slightly more just because of the better form that he's shown over these prior game weeks. With the fixture against Leeds coming up in game week 22, I don't think the top 10k will be doing anything with Antonio or Bowen, as the West Ham look to be on great form at the current moment. And then our final two strikers coming in with just below 40% is going to be Dennis, a double game week player that I don't think any managers are going to get rid of, considering the fact that he didn't travel to AFCON and looks to be like the best Watford striker if he does stay fit. And I guess that's the only concern about Dennis, and we will hear from the Watford manager closer to game week 22. I'm just hoping that he does return from that knock, as he is a great option at that 6.0 price point. And the final play in the starting 11 is going to be Ollie Watkins with only a 37.8% ownership, quite high considering the fact that I didn't really favour Ollie Watkins recently, but with the expectation that Aston Villa might have a double game week 23, which we might talk about in the Ultimate Guide coming up tomorrow or later on in the week, I think the Aston Villa man will be staying in most of the top 10k template sides. So overall, the team looks quite strong, except for maybe one or two players that could be out injured. I think Heung-min Son's the definite option, but let's talk about him now in the transfer plan. So with just below that 70% ownership, I do think the South Korean will be on the way out for most managers, and that'll either provide a downgrade to another midfielder or an upgrade in the forward department. So if the top 10k does a straight switch, I think a player like a Maddison or a Leicester midfielder is very attractive, considering the fact that they do have a double game week 22. Now the Leicester fixtures after game week 22 aren't that great, but I do think that double is going to be worth it from their point of view. The defense from Leicester is pretty bad, so I do think that attack is going to have to be kind of all-out attack to win the fixture, and therefore Maddison, Lookman, a Tielemans or a Perez could be quite a good investment. But unfortunately, other than that, not too many options to kind of go for in that midfield department, and that's why I do think they could use the funds to upgrade one of the forwards. So forwards in demand that spring to mind are going to be a Harry Kane, a Ronaldo, and if they want to go a little bit cheaper, they can also maybe look at a Josh King. But Harry Kane and Ronaldo I definitely think will be the preferable options, because from a captaincy point of view, those premium assets are better captains in my opinion. I do think Ronaldo will probably be the most favourable option to bring in, as long as the United manager does confirm that he will be fine for the upcoming double, as he did miss last night's FA Cup game due to a little bit of pain. So to be honest, I think it's either going to be one of those two moves, either Maddison or Ronaldo in for an upgrade, and then just a cheap midfielder for Son to afford that Ronaldo upgrade. As usual on these templates, let me know in the comments down below how many of these players you guys own. Also, if you're on the top 10k, what moves are you guys planning, so that we can get a little bit of insight into the top 10k manager's mind. But this basically wraps up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new and have not subscribed yet. Make sure to check out the other videos I created yesterday and the day before. A mid-season review which includes a lot of stats and graphs, and then a free draft that I created yesterday for those of you guys who want to use the chip. I'll be seeing you guys for the ultimate guide. Make sure to comment down below any talking points you want me to cover in that video. Otherwise, the team selection coming up probably on Thursday, as we get as much news as possible before making those transfer decisions. But on Friday, I'll be doing a deadline stream 1 hour before the deadline, so make sure you guys are there, or at least have notifications on so that you don't miss the deadline. I'm signing off. It's me, Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.